Mary, I've collected these documents for your review and signature.
Sorry, I don't have time right now. You know, maybe we can bring him back tomorrow. I'll see if I have more time then.
The testers worked really hard on making the revisions you asked for last time. If you don't accept these documents, there's nothing they can do going forward.
Bill, I don't think you heard me. Now, I said take them and bring them back tomorrow.
There we go again. The last time you did this to us, it cost us a 2-week delay. What's wrong with you, Mary?
George, don't you understand that Q&A has ostensibly taken control of this project? In all due respect, Gunter, you don't say anything. You're just letting this happen.
Dan, can you explain to me why you had that outburst during our team meeting earlier today?
You know, what's to explain? Every time there's an issue or a problem, you take the side of Q&A. I think you're making us look bad.
What would you do in a situation like this? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I would get on Mary. I think she's procrastinating. It reflects on the whole project. She's making Q&A an obstacle that doesn't need to exist.
Met with Bill and Mary, and they pulled out a document. And I asked Mary to show me some examples of what was going on. There were entries with strikeouts without any initials. There were attachments missing. There were changes with poor explanations for changes in the testing procedures. The document happened to be yours, and it was the 4th time.
Yeah, but look, don't you understand, first of all, that she's setting this whole thing up? She's a kind of a control freak, that she does these kind of things. The second thing is, I don't appreciate having my document put in my face like this. This feels like a setup to me, Gunter. I'm sorry. But you know what? If this is finished, I want to get back to work.
I'm going to set up a facilitation, and it's going to be between the preparers, you, and Mary. We got to get this thing resolved.
So be it, my friend.
Believe what I have to deal with, Jackie. I have a team in conflict. The technical guys are up in arms over Mary, our QA representative. I think there's something going on between Dan and Mary, and that's driving this conflict. And if that's so, I think Dan is agitating the rest of the team some.
That doesn't surprise me at all. In case you don't know, Dan and Mary had a relationship a while ago. They have a child. They've been at each other's throats ever since they broke up.
As I understand from our prep meeting, that we're here to focus on parenting plans. Why don't we start? Please let me know what you think you can get from this mediation. Mary.
I have a change in situation. Dan and I both work the same hours, and our son Ivan is now 4 years old. My mom's been really super about taking care of him during the week, but Mom has had a stroke. And I took all my vacation time to take care of Ivan. I can no longer ask Mom to do what she's been doing. I want Dan to take greater responsibilities now.
Well, you know, it's funny that you're asking me. She's always told me. And I think that I've always responded to everything you've asked me to do. But something happened last year that I think it bears mentioning. And that's that I met somebody. Somebody came into my life, and Kelly and my relationship has been very bumpy since then, quite honestly. Now, she's never met this woman who really is the love of my life, but she got me to agree to not have our son, Ivan, and my new love, Clarissa, in the house at the same time. And like a fool, I agreed to do this. But I'm going to say right here and now that enough is enough.
We disagreed on income, and we need to work that out.
I get the feeling once again that Mary is trying to take as much money from me as she can. We've had this worked out. When we have the child in separate custody, we pay the money, and it's worked well. I don't know what's wrong with that.
I did that just to keep the peace. You know, Dan has a tendency to be angry and irrational.
Come on, Mary, that is a cheap shot, and it's inappropriate in this meeting that's supposed to be mediation and mending things, don't you think?
So Dan, what's the issue in the income?
Oh, the income is, I feel like she's trying to get as much money as she can. She thinks I'm holding out on a hobby that I have, that I've saved and traded baseball cards almost all of my life, you know, and that I'm holding money back from that.
You know, I've checked on Arbay, and not only does he have a bunch of cards listed there with hefty asking prices, the turnover seems really good. I mean, in addition, I think he's surreptitiously using his house illegally as a B&B. He's unwilling to list what he gets on his income statement because he's afraid he's going to get caught. He's offering me $15 a month. It's not enough. Under the table.
Look, we've been apart for almost 3 years, you know, and I still get the feeling that the squeeze is being put on me all the time, that she's getting as much money as she can out of this situation.
Tell me a little bit more about Ivan, Mary.
He's so wonderful. You know, he's a very happy kid. Unfortunately, when he comes home from Dan's, he seems unhappy. And Dan has a tendency to spoil him. I want him to keep Clarissa away from Ivan. She's absolutely no good.
You know, that is a totally false statement. I love this kid as much as you do. I get along with him well, and I try not to spoil him. And Clarissa, how dare you? You've never even met her.
I don't have to. She's got a reputation as a floozy.
Oh, come on. Where are we going with this? You know what? You take this tack with me, and I'm out of here. I'll see you in court.
I'll try to control myself. Don't bring her up.
Aloha, and thank you for coming.
As you might know, Dan and I had a relationship that ended 3 years ago.
We're trying to formalize a parenting plan for our child, Ivan, but we cannot agree upon visitation, custody, or child support. So we hope to come here and maybe at least be able to work some of this stuff out or get an idea of what we can do.
Great. Well, as a starting point, why don't you tell me what you've done so far?
Well, we downloaded a parenting plan form, and Mary and I filled those forms out. I think yours was in red and mine was in black. And as you can already probably see if you just look at them, we are actually quite a long ways apart in what we want to do. Now, I'm going to say something I know I'm going to be sorry for, but honestly believe Mary is working it like this to make it hard for me to introduce my son to my new love, Clarissa.
First of all, you put your choices in black and mine in red to make it look like I'm being unreasonable. I don't appreciate that. Secondly, Clarissa is not the only reason. You have changed so much since this all began. I just don't know if I can trust leaving my child with you alone at all.
You know, I'm in anger management, and I'm taking it real seriously. I'm trying to make some changes. That's a crummy thing to say, that you don't trust me with my own son. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
Okay, well, we'll get right to it then. And are there any other issues you want to put on the table before we proceed?
We don't agree on child support. Dan's trying to get away with this ridiculous sum of $15 a month. I can't even believe, what are you thinking? What will that buy him, honestly?
Is there anything sacred here? Look, we're looking for an overview. What are the parameters in Hawaii? We're just trying to find out what we have to do to comply with the state and with the court.
Okay, well, both of you are going to leave here equipped to address this issue tonight.
And we do also need to finally agree on custody.
Well, there's certainly a lot to cover, and you don't seem to be on the same page at this point, but hopefully through our discussion, we might be able to begin to find some common ground. I would like to start with the parenting plan you've completed first, and then address child custody and child support guidelines. Okay. Please feel free to ask questions throughout as we go along. Hawaii law, as you know, requires that the parents, fill out a parenting plan when in a contested custody action. Some parents devise this individually, but you've made some headway by choosing to do it together. This is great because it shows you're already thinking about distributing your responsibilities in raising Ivan. And the plan can help clarify your roles and duties as parents, and even though you're not agreeing right now, it can help you anticipate problem areas in the future. Okay.
Well, that's fine and well, but since I don't expect us to agree, I think we're going to end up in mediation. So can you give us or give me some idea of what mediation entails?
Okay, well, mediators have different approaches depending on the issues on the table. Their challenge is to match the approach to the needs of the parties at that time.
Could you give us maybe an example of one approach?
Okay. Well, one approach might look specifically at your differences and how you think Ivan should be spending his summers. Dan, I know you would like Ivan to spend the entire summer every other year with you in the mainland, and Mary, you'd prefer if you folks could split up the summers evenly. Okay.
Well, first, I want to give Ivan the opportunity to bond with my extended family. He has grandparents, he has aunts and uncles and cousins. Mary knows that he gets along well with my family, and they visited here many times.
I know them, but they're not all that great. I mean, one of them is sitting in prison right now for tax evasion and money laundering. They came here while Dan was busy having his affair and left me to play hostess to his relatives.
You know, I'm one of 10 children, and those 10 children live on the mainland, and that makes it difficult. So I have to really work my schedule carefully so I can make sure Ivan gets to know these people. I've got to work my vacation and my travel time so that we can get to the mainland to meet this family.
The rest of the time, you know who will be spending time with Ivan.
Well, Mary, why don't you continue?
I'm much more practical than Dan. There's no way he can handle taking care of Ivan for an entire summer. Besides, it's just not good for Ivan to be away from me or from Dan, for that matter, for an entire summer.
Yeah, but we can arrange visitation.
Right. I suppose you want me to travel to the mainland to see Ivan during the weekends? In addition, Dan's idea of having Ivan on the mainland for extended periods of time also takes him away from his peer group here. His schedule's going to be more normal. I don't mind most of Dan's family. It's not my responsibility to have Ivan bond with Dan's relatives on the mainland. Our responsibility is Ivan's relationship with Dan and me. How do I know whether Dan will even in fact return Ivan back to the islands?
Well, that was a good exchange. All right. Mary, one issue that seems very important to you is that Ivan not be separated from you or his peers for too long during the summer breaks.
He'll have problems later making friends here, and splitting the summers means we'll each have Ivan for an extended enough period of time for bonding.
And Dan, it seems your preference is that he have sufficient time to spend with your family members over there and bond with his extended family. It seems important to you. It certainly is apparent that both of you have as your central interest here the best interest of Ivan, but it seems to be playing out in different ways for you.
Mary is an only daughter, and her mother is ill right now. So if something happened to both of us, God forbid, Ivan would need my extended family for all the help he could get from them.
Yeah, okay, it seems further interest why it's further reason why it's important for you for Ivan to spend time with family on the mainland. But let's move on. In summary, I think it's important to know that the mediators are going to carefully listen to each of you, and from this information that they get during that exchange, they're going to try to identify the fundamental interests that you have. Okay, and they strive to kind of unearth the underlying interests and needs, or underlying needs behind those interests. Okay, a mediator works with you to form win-win solutions at meeting those needs. but you have to know that the primary focus is going to be Ivan's best interest. It's a central theme. Okay. In other areas of your parenting plan, like child custody or visitation, you might also not agree. You may have differences. And therefore, it's important to know that you have to prioritize your interests. And all of them are not going to get fully met. Okay. The question is, are you willing to compromise in some of those needs in order to move forward and form a compatible and collaborative parental relationship? So how does that sound?
That sounds okay to me.
Sounds okay to me.
Well, let's move on to the issue of child support. Okay, it's pretty basic. There is a formula, court-ordered formula called Child Support Guidelines. You input both of your incomes in there, your gross income, before taxes or deductions. You indicate if you're paying for child care or medical expenses and reduce those from your fee, and then it spits out a number. And it's that simple.
So does income include money that is raised from hobbies, say for something like baseball collection sales?
It's a good question. That really depends. If it's a one-time sale, probably not. But if it becomes a regular thing, a monthly thing, then that certainly counts as monthly income.
I knew it. How about income from something slightly illegal like bed and breakfast rentals?
Here we go again, slightly illegal.
In baseball cards. You know, I don't know what you're trying to do here, but you're making me nuts. You know, we're trying to work on what's really on. I think you're trying to get as much money out of me as you can.
There's not much.
Okay, I think it's important to recognize that the court requires parents to disclose their entire income. And I know this can be tough, but I encourage you to see this as income for, not for Mary, but for Ivan's needs.
What about when we're with Ivan by ourselves? Can we take care of our own expenses?
I think that's the norm, but you should anticipate some shared expenses for Ivan over the years.
Is there a minimum amount that is mandated by the state to be
There
paid?
is. Yes, there is. It's
Good.
$50, and it would be highly unusual if it was less.
All right, Dan, what do you want to do?
Well, I think we should talk about custody. You know, I came in here with an open mind and no axe to grind, but after a lot of your inferences about me being irresponsible, not being responsible about my money, I'm not even sure you should have custody of Ivan.
You know what? It's never been about the money, okay? It's about what's in Ivan's best interest. You're not going to try and take my child away from me, are you?
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm sorry I said that wrong because you're making me nuts. So let's move on.
Okay. Well, since we're on the subject, let's talk about custody. There's two types of custody. It's physical, and that's where the child is living, and legal in terms of decision-making around Ivan. The court can grant joint or sole custody, either way, and they want to find out what is in the best interest of Ivan in making that determination. Some of the factors they look at are where and with whom the child has been living, the fitness of both parents, and perhaps more serious factors like potential risks, if any, from either parent.
So what do you think about our case?
Well, it would be very difficult for me to give you a definitive answer on how the court would rule. There are a lot of other factors that go into it.
Okay.
Okay, so Mary, what do you want to do?
Well, we need to put Ivan's interest, of course, in front of our own, which has always been what I'm focused on. I mean, I just don't want you to think that I'm going to roll over and accept every impractical demand that you have.
That sounds a lot like my line. That's what I say.
And then there's Clarissa.
I think that's for another time.
Okay, I agree. Well, I hope you found this discussion helpful, and please feel free to contact me if you have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I'd like to say good evening to Greg Eckhart. Thank you so much for joining us on our vignette this evening. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks. Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate it very much. My name is Greg Eckhart, and I'm a paralegal for a nonprofit law firm. and I primarily work with family law legal issues.
Well, you participated as a counselor this evening in a parenting dispute between two people that had a relationship. How typical are situations like you saw this evening? How typical is that?
I think situations of this nature are very
What
typical.
types of situations do you run into when you have people coming to you and asking questions about how to deal with their situation as it pertains to their kids?
The most central issue is probably the visitation, the child's time sharing with each parent. That's a very big issue, very important issue, particularly because the parents are having to anticipate years ahead, not just what's going on in the right
So
now.
let's say, so let's say the child is 4 years old. How long are these parents, these parents, former partners, going to have to deal with each other when it comes to the child?
It does depend on what kind of custody arrangement they end up
Well, let's assume
with.
joint custody.
If it's joint custody, then they should plan on having to communicate functionally and effectively up until the child's at least 18, even 23 if they're in college.
So school's a big issue as the child grows up. Do you see a lot of conflict and dispute when it comes to children at
That
school?
depends. I can see probably around income that could be an issue for some parents in the public school or private school. If the child's been in school, private school for a long time, then the court may want to keep the child in school, so parents may have to negotiate how they're going to pay for it upon breakup or divorce.
Okay. How about religion?
Religion, if they're sharing joint legal custody, then religion is one of those issues that both parents would have to agree on. Religion and medical expenses, that's like getting braces or something of that nature, joining the military before 18, getting married before 18.
Okay.
So these are the kind of issues that they would have to face.
Okay. And how about if one parent is relocating?
If they have joint custody and one parent's relocating, then they have to work out something together with a mediator, preferably, or on their own. But if not, then going to court would be an option where a judge would order visitation or some kind of schedule.
Oh, that's really interesting. And then when it comes to this aspect of child support, is there a big problem in Hawaii when it comes to child support?
Well, there certainly seems to be an issue with payment, but I don't know if that's necessarily anything distinct in Hawaii. I know that every state probably has their own challenges with it. There's a lot of under-the-table work here, so that may allow for some payees or payors to kind of skate around the system a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And how would you rank parents? I mean, in terms of, do they go in the range from totally dysfunctional to totally collaborative?
I've seen everything across the spectrum, yeah. And obviously the parents that are a little more collaborative and their communication's a little better, they end up working through these issues a little more quickly or comprehensively than some folks that are coming into it with some more issues.
How much domestic violence, how big a role does the domestic violence play when it comes to court's decisions in terms of custody?
It's a very, very sensitive issue, and the court takes it very seriously. And any case that's going to be mediated or sent out to mediation is not going to be a domestic violence case.
Okay.
And so the courts pay a lot of attention to those kinds of cases.
Yeah, and do you get, sorry to say, repeat business from couples because they come to an agreement and over time new issues come up and they then wind up again closer to the dysfunctional level than they do to the collaborative?
Well, some folks are coming into it from very different places, and some are coming into the parenting situation not having very good communication skills and not having good mentors to learn from in the past. So coming already with a certain level of dysfunction, and unless something is done to attend to that root issue, then it is likely that people will keep returning. But that's why mediators are here. And
now, what role does this aspect of people, as people move on, does this aspect of a new love, what role does that play in your experience?
That can be problematic, but it really depends on each parent's maturity and how inclusive they really want to be, and with both directions. So it matters. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you once more, okay, for
It's my
coming
pleasure,
and
really.
participating as an actor
Thank
in
you
our
so much.
vignette, and for sharing your perspective. So
You're welcome. It's
Thank
been
you
my
ever so
honor.
much.
Thanks so much, Leo.
and best of luck.
Okay.